It's not often we're joined by a Tour de France friend and climbing legend in the Col Collective Towers, and really happy to welcome Dan Martin to the house today. A man I've followed his career for quite some time now, and we've had various different functions through Mavic and Cannondale and got to know each other quite well. Shared the road yesterday on one of the Tour de France stages, but I thought while I've managed to slow him down for just a few minutes, try and pin him down and see where cycling sort of came from and sort of how he got into it. So just cast your mind back all those years, and first question I had was like, how did you find this sport? I know your family's quite cycling orientated, but
yeah, I think obviously when you're surrounded by cycling from a young age, it's inevitable that you're going to try it. I think a big part of people getting into cycling is exposure. I think if you're exposed to it and you're encouraged to try cycling, I don't know many people who've tried it, not liked it, and walked away. Yeah, you know, I think, and that's why you see a lot of people only experimenting with the sport at a later age, and they become hooked. You know, so I think it's. I've always said that I think when you're like, everybody rides a bike, right? Yeah. But a bike is essentially people's first experience of freedom, of self-propelling. You begin to walk and then you begin to ride a bike, and it's that it just expands the possibilities of where you can go and that sense of freedom that you get as a child. And I think people then come back to it in later life, and obviously that's diverting a bit from the question, but that's where obviously I was exposed to it from like cycling magazines, on television constantly. And then I first fell in love with actually riding here in the Pyrenees, like just down the road from here. So that's why I love coming back here. It's been a great couple of days in this Col Collective house, just riding on the roads that really made me realise that I wanted to like try and be good at this, I guess. You know? We
were checking out stage 14 for this year's race up over the north side of the Soulor, Tourmalet. I've obviously ridden the Tourmalet quite a few times. It's a legendary climb, and I've got my own memories of it. But we were chatting last night over dinner, and there was a certain epic tale which made me smile a lot, because I do like my endurance, about when you were a kid and Tourmalet, what went on back in the early days of the Tour de France to get you hooked?
Well, I'm not sure. That might. I guess it shows how the mentality that you need to be a professional cyclist, because it was I think we were on holiday here for the 2003 Tour de France, and the day before the famous Lance Armstrong crash, when he crashed on Les Ardennes, the day before finished in Ludenville, which is after the descent to the Périsourde, and we were staying at the bottom of Saint-Sauveur, the bottom of the Tourmalet. So we had this bright idea. I was 16, going on 17 years old, quite a keen competitive cyclist at that stage. I was like racing junior races, but I'd only been riding for 2 years or so, to attempt to ride over the Tourmalet and the Col d'Aspin and halfway up the Périsourde to watch the race go by, and then ride back again. Yeah. It's a long way, but especially when it was one of those really ridiculously hot Pyrenean days in the Tour, and it's 30 plus degrees, and there's nowhere to get water and there's nowhere to get any food, and so me and my father set out early, obviously, and first time I told him there's no problem. You know, even 16
you're
years
excited
old.
because the races come in and helicopters
Aspin,
in the air.
that side of the Aspin, not really a big deal. A few hard kilometres towards the top, and then I think I first knew I was in trouble on the way back, about 2k from the top of Aspin. Still felt okay, but then obviously just dehydration hit. I remember climbing up through Le Mongy on the way back, going about 8 kilometres per hour, and the race was due to pass there the next day. And first of all, the gendarmes tried to turn us around and go, and it was like, no, you can't go through. So but we're staying on the other side of the pass.
They don't care.
Like,
we just go round.
But eventually we got past, you know, and because the road was completely closed, even back then, 24 hours before the race. Yeah. And then we got past the gendarmes, and then I had the devil cheering me on when I think the speed then dropped to 7 kilometres per hour. Obviously, back then as well, it's 39.25 was kind of as big as gears got, you know. So grinding up this climb, and then I think I pretty much had heat stroke and spent the next 2 or 3 days in bed.
Did you see the tour?
I did see the tour the next day, yeah, but I wasn't very healthy. But then I think probably standing on the side of the road, on the side of Luzardin for another 4 hours or so in the baking sun, that probably wasn't the best thing for me as well. So
what clicked at that moment? Because I mean that's a sort of tale which would either make you never want to ride a bike again and take beach holidays for the rest of your life, but you obviously went the other way. So what sort of happened?
It's the challenge. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. It's like that's what's special about living in the mountains. That's why, obviously, it's not the French Pyrenees, but we live in Andorra as well, and I just love riding there. And it's just there's something about going out every day and just having. Most people think you're crazy to say it, but it's easier to ride because you go out with an ambition, right? That's okay. It's an objective.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to get to the top of that climb.
Yeah.
Today it's like you go. I wake up in the morning and say, right, I'm going to do that mountain and that mountain, and it's amazing to be able to go out in the morning and just it's a sense of achievement that you don't get on a flat ride or anywhere even small climbs.
It's nature's intervals.
Yeah, basically.
Otherwise, you've got to think, right, I've got to do this and look at the power meter and how am I going to do this on this flat. Speaking of flat roads and going fast, that was like yesterday's objective. I was struggling just holding the wheel, and I was saying, I was sort of sat behind you thinking, right, there's a different way of training here, because I was expecting to be sort of hanging on if I could on a climb, and then on the flat having a bit of recovery, but it wasn't really like that yesterday, was it? It was a bit more consistent, I guess. So,
I mean, that's an insight into how we're kind of encouraged to train at a professional level. It's just a consistent power all day long, and it's that strength on the flat. I mean, that's anybody can do high power on a climb, but being able to produce that power on the flat as well, that's where it's more difficult, and that's where we almost take for granted, I guess, as well, because it's because I've always thought, you can make power on the flat, you can make it on the climb, you can make the same power on the flat, but I guess it's a way of pedaling, or it's just a strength that we get from the races as well. I think it's the big. Obviously, in the races we go pretty hard on the flat as well. So it's.
Well, I said to you yesterday, it's just a concentration. I was just normally on the flat parts, I'm sort of like looking forward to the climb, so I'm sort of dreaming a bit, daydreaming probably, and looking at the scenery. And yesterday I was just looking at your back wheel, basically thinking, "Sheesh, we're still over 300, going like, I just don't do this on the flat normally. It's a totally different way of pedaling." Yeah. It's a different mindset. So actually reminds me, I'm sort of living in the mountains now, loving it, and the cows are out and they're bringing all the sorts of animals back onto the mountainside. There's a lot of life. The fans are going to come for the Tour de France. But do you actually ever get a chance to enjoy the climbs? I mean, I say enjoy, but actually get to see the scenery when you're racing, or is it purely a sort of, eyes down focus?
I enjoy it.
You enjoy it? Oh,
yeah, definitely. I think my first Tour de France a little bit less, but now I got to the level where I can actually kind of, and that's, I think people saw it last year at the Tour. I rode around with a smile on my face, just enjoying it, just soaking up the atmosphere. And just obviously when the race is on, it's a little bit different, but then you still have to I think you have to give yourself a little bit of perspective sometime and realise, one, just how fortunate we are to be able to racing in, I always think that it doesn't matter how much it's hurting, how much what you're suffering, every one of those people on the side of the road wants to be you. So we are incredibly fortunate to be in the position that we're in, and also we get to rail these descents on closed roads. It's like that's not I'm really going to miss that when I retire, knowing that there's nothing coming the other way.
It's really good because I was chatting about it yesterday, and it's just like this sort of juxtaposition of the fans are there because they love the sport and they love the scenery, and people watch the Tour just because it's an amazing circus of just colour and everything which flashes by. But if you can't enjoy it as a rider, it's sort of missing the point almost, because it's your job and you're paid to do it, but at the same time it's so beautiful to be doing that, and you're just gifted to be able to actually be in that position. So I'm glad you actually do enjoy it.
As I say, I think it's that word perspective. It's people get so stressed because it's a cauldron of pressure. The Tour. There's so much intensity coming from all directions, from media, from the sponsors, from if you have a bad Tour de France, it doesn't matter what else the team has done all year. It's a bad year. Last year, people were saying to me, "Oh, that was probably one of your best seasons." So, well, actually, it completely sucked until the Tour, until the Dauphiné in June. It was probably my worst season until the June, and then obviously the stage with the Dauphiné and the Tour, it has this different complexion as far as people people remember the Tour. You know, it's the only race.
Everything else is sort of put to one side. I mean, you've won classics as well, but I mean, how would you rate a classics win versus a Tour de France stage win then, in terms of the publicity it gives you, or in terms of the kudos for the rest of your career? Are they equal or?
No, the Tour is just completely
even bigger than Liège. Or wow, it's pretty phenomenal.
I think on a personal level, the classics probably feels more special. Yeah. But there's nothing like when you cross the finish line at the Tour stage and you've won. It's just like completely crazy. And it's the world's media. It's the only race that really matters this year. During the season there. You know, so.
You mentioned about railing downhills, railing them and staying upright. I've had my fair share of thrills and spills where I've managed to sort of cheese grate myself down the road. It's not much fun. And something which sticks in my mind is actually that crash which you had with Richie Port a couple of years back. I mean, I was watching it on the telly, and it was just like suddenly Richie goes down, you had nowhere to go, you're sort of like ragdolling it basically across the road. And from your perspective, bounced and rolled, and I mean you were lucky in a way, but you busted a couple of vertebrae, carried on. One thing, I mean, cyclists are hard as nails, that's why the sport's amazing. You get up and you keep going, but from my perspective, I always lose some confidence for quite a while, because the last crash I had, it came out of nowhere and the front wheel just sort of went on quite a dry bit of tarmac. And if you're racing the Tour and you back up and you might have some physio or whatever, but from the mental side, how do you throw yourself down the side of a mountain again? Do you just have to disengage your brain, or are you actually more cautious? Because when the race is on, but I'm out riding and training, I don't need to be pushing it. And it's always in my head, like knowing that happened and it could happen again, but you guys don't have that luxury. You just got to go for it. So how do you get over it?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, as far as it depends on the circumstances of the crash. If you do lose grip once and your front wheel just goes, then it's going to take a long time to get you from the confidence in the trust in your equipment back. Whereas if you're for example, the crash with Richie, there was nothing I could do about it. It was not my fault or anything. So it's kind of, obviously it does take a little bit of trusting the people around you again. Because obviously a lot of when we're racing, a lot of it all comes down to trust. It's trusting that the guy in front of you can see further around the corner and he's not going to crash, so you're all the time, it's just you have to believe that those guys don't want to crash as well, so but it's like nobody likes crashing, and I'm probably one of I think you see it more in there's a wet TT the other week in Basque, and there's crazy downhill in the rain, and I probably lost quite a few seconds on the downhill just because I'm not going to I just don't really want to take the risk, and there's guys who are willing to a victory is so valuable that they'll absolutely push the limits, and sometimes you crash, sometimes you don't, and we've all done it, we've all pushed the limits, and sometimes you get away with it, but it's having that confidence in your equipment as well, and just being able to I always say that I think it's kind of, people say, oh, this guy's a good descender, this guy's bad. Is it about being a good descender, or is it about risk taking? That's the question. I think anybody can go downhill fast, but fast and safely, or fast and taking risks, that's the difference. If you're really going to the limit, chances are you're going to crash one day. Does that make you a good? If you're willing to risk crashing to go downhill fast, does that make you a good descender or not? I don't know.
Do you see in the peloton people just taking way too many risks?
Again, it comes down to what they consider, what I consider risk and what they consider risk. So it's a judgment thing. It's You talk to guys and he said, you took a lot of risks on that downhill. I said, no, I was taking it easy. It's just but if you're trying to follow them, then they're not. So, and also it's like, through my experience, I've seen good and bad bikes too, and that makes a hell of a difference. What bike you're on, what tyres you have, that can make you a good descender or a bad descender. In tyre pressures and set up for the road, if it's a bit wet out or whatever. I think most people run their tyre pressures way too hard, so you don't have that feedback from the grip. Yeah. Now you've been in the peloton a while now. What was it, 2008 when you turned pro? So over a decade. Things have changed in that time. The sport, it's got incredibly popular since the Wigo era and the Olympics and everything. And you guys winning tour stages and Geraint and that. And it sort of struck me. Well, one, it struck me as I'm getting old, which is quite funny. But
from 2004, there's quite a crop of riders which you came up with, and they're sort of ruling the world now, at the Tour de France and all these big races. So you must have some crazy cool memories of racing as a junior and back in the day, and not knowing where you were going, but just doing it for the passion and seeing how the sport's actually progressed and being part of it.
It's funny you said that, because we've actually said it a lot between me and my father, and that it is almost like a golden generation. That class of 2003, 2004 between Cav, Geraint, like Ian Stannard, Swifty. There's but it isn't just from a UK point of view, from an international point of view. If you look at the Junior Worlds in 2004, like 30, 40, 50 professionals in there. It's just there's so many top level riders born in 1986. I don't know what happened before that, to cause that, but. You get Robert Gessing, Roman Kreuziger, there's too many to name. And it's kind of remarkable. But I mean, it's funny. I keep saying a lot of people, me and Geraint, obviously we've since 2003 been racing together and known each other, and seeing him win the Tour last year was pretty crazy. It's especially as I used to beat him on every climb, so it's kind of, I'm not sure what happened there.
Does it still give you that? I mean, in this part of your career, seeing Geraint win the Tour, does it give you another boost, or are you thinking, damn it, Geraint?
No, definitely, but I mean, one thing I'll always like over him is that he never won the Tour of Wales.
Well, there you go.
And he had a full team. I was on my own. So, he's never going to get that. He's never
going to get that jersey.
He's still sore about that. So,
is he?
Yeah. I'm not sure he'd trade the Tour de France yellow for the Junior Tour of Wales yellow.
That's where it all starts, isn't it?
It's his home race.
It's his home race. Yeah. Speaking of sort of home races, speaking of sort of the trajectory through cycling, you weren't sort of British cycling and the academy. You sort of cut your own teeth, really. How did that sort of come about, and did you just sort of go abroad and head to France and just see what you can do? And
obviously that led to the change in nationality as well, and I was almost born 2 years too early, because it was very much track focused, and to be on the academy you had to be riding the track, and you can kind of
it's not going to happen really.
Recognise that, understand that, I'm never going to be any good on the track, so it was and that was also a well-trodden pathway to being professional, going to France. Whereas now obviously it's completely changed with this continental system in the UK with criteriums, and then obviously the UK academies at the UK cycling and stuff. It's you can become professional from a different angle, So, but it's back then the only way to go do it really was if you weren't on the track, it was to go and brave it in France on your own.
Well, you've done a pretty good job of it so far. So, in terms of how the sport's changed, you've got the pelotons changes. I mean, technology and everything. We could go on for 2 hours talking about the tech on bikes and whatever. But have you seen a significant shift from when you sort of became a pro and training techniques and things like this, and you train on your own, right? So how do you stay up to date with what's happening in the world of training and nutrition, and how to get the most out of your body? It's because if you're on your own, do you ever feel a bit isolated, or do the team help you out?
I think a lot of it's obviously we get a lot of help from the team now, especially this year. It's been a big improvement as far as the amount of advice for nutrition and working with the team trainers, but a lot of it comes down to personal experience too, trial and error. Obviously, you always make mistakes, but I don't think they're always. You can't really call them mistakes as long as you learn from them, And through the years, I've learned what my body needs to perform, and that's obviously been it develops every year. That's why I moved to Andorra in the end. Everybody says, it's because of taxes and whatever, but it was because I was sitting in Girona, and it was just after I met my wife. We were it was a bit of perspective, and I think living in Andorra on my own on top of the mountain would have been more difficult, but obviously with Jess it was easier. But also, I got to the end of, I did the 2014 tour, and I kind of had, talking to Geraint and guys like that, as to train for the mountains, I kind of had I stepped back and just analysed why I wasn't performing in the Grand Tours, and when I was performing, I was okay, but I wasn't on top of it, and I kind of realised that I was really good at 15 to 20 minute climbs. And why is that? I was because all the climbs in Girona are between 15 and 20 minutes. So that's all I was training. If you want to get better
at the longer stuff, you need to do
exactly, yeah. So I was kind of thought, well, let's just move to, I've won Liège, won Lombardia at that stage. Let's see what we can do in Grand Tours now. Let's focus and go to that altitude and go do more efforts on climbs. The more altitude, accumulate more meters, and see. Because that's obviously it's only in the grand tours that you get these days with 4,000 or 5,000 meters in one day. So you need to be doing that in training too. So that's what led to the move to Andorra, and then suddenly, we moved to Andorra in early 2015, and already by the Vuelta 2015, I was third on GC before I didn't quite have time. The tour didn't really go to plan. Yeah. But then by the time I'd obviously got a few months of training in altitude and training coming down mountains, the Vuelta I was third on GC before I crashed out on stage 9, I think. So it was that showed definitely. And then 2016 was my first time in the top 10 at the tour. So immediately it showed that what the improvement.
Yeah, I mean it's just you put yourself in those surroundings and you're going to adapt to them. If you're on the flat part of the world, you're probably going to be good at crosswinds and echelons, and then you've got some cobbles in there, you're probably going to be good at the early classics, and then you've got some big mountains, you're probably going to go all right in the mountains. So
like I say, it's the easiest place to train in the world as well. Not the easiest, but as far as psychologically, you just got to get to the top of the mountain and actually training them for the day. It's not. It takes away the psychological effort of having to think, right, I've got to do an effort now. Yeah. You just get up the mountain. 2013 was your first stage win in the Tour. In the Pyrenees, just a little way away from here, Bagno de Bigorre. Do you prefer the Pyrenees? Do they suit you better because you haven't taken a stage in the Alps yet? But I've always gone better in the Pyrenees.
Okay.
I don't know if that's from a emotive state as far as the good happy memories I've got from being here on holiday, or from races like amateur races like Ronde des Arts, or just a personal affliction to the mountains, the mountain range here, or because it suits me. I think I do all my best stages have always been in the Pyrenees. Obviously Col Collective last year was second when I won the stage, and I've come close a few times in the Pyrenees. I had really good stages in the Pyrenees a few times, so it's I do love it around here. But and the Alps, it's just a little bit the climb. I mean, doing the Soulor the other day, the north side of the Soulor is the first time I've done that climb. It's just so beautiful here. It's more irregular. The Alps is more smooth road surface. I think it suits the bigger guys. It's easier, less steep, and it's just like a real. But now the Tour seems to be finding more climbs in the Alps that are a bit more irregular, a bit more Pyrenean style.
With some gravel up there or whatever. And it kind of strikes me your riding style is very aggressive, and it's you just never give up, which is why I just like watching riders of that ilk who just want to give it a go. They're always pushing, and some of the alpine climbs, they almost seem too calculated, where it's like they don't allow that opportunist to sometimes get away because the irregular gradient or the narrowness of the road or whatever.
It's so fast in the Alps as well because of the lesser gradient and the smooth road surface, and it's quite wide, and you kind of get into a rhythm in the Alps, whereas the Pyrenees you can never get into a rhythm. I think that suits me a bit better. It's kind of that's what makes it so hard here. I think you can grind up the Alps. Yeah. But in the Pyrenees, it's kind of.
Did you plan you were most aggressive rider last year in the Tour, or most combative rider? Yeah. So standing on the podium at the end with that is a pretty cool accolade to have. Did you plan any of that? Was it just, or did you just go on the field?
I was completely surprised. I just didn't. I'd never expected that to happen. Partly because it's a vote, so you don't know what way it's going to go. But it's it's a GC rider never wins that either, and all of my attacks are kind of calculated and done for a reason, So it's kind of it was some of them. It always looks a little bit crazy, but I have a very calculating mind that figures out. Like I try to predict the race, and sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to predict because obviously other teams don't do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, well, you can't control everyone. I think they're supposed to do. Yeah, but why are you doing that now? And that comes down to being the Tour as well, because I think it's the only race in the year that, with 10 days to go, you'll have teams riding to protect ninth on general or something. It's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to get to the podium, and you guys are chasing me because I'm 8th and you're 7th. It's just like it's stuff like that kind of it does drive you a little bit crazy at the Tour because but it comes down to it being so important. Yeah. Are you looking for a podium this year? Yeah, that's the goal. I think I've been capable of it the last few years. Yeah. But get a clean run, fingers crossed. And no crash, no illness, and obviously I think without breaking my back the other year, I would have been on the podium.
Yeah.
I think I would have been pretty close at least.
Yeah.
And I've improved. I've definitely stepped up a level this year, but it seems that the whole peloton has. So it's kind of we'll see. I mean, I've improved in a few areas, so hopefully it counts.
Do you like the shorter stages? They seem to be going for these more sort of punchy stages. Does that favour you or
not this year though? It's kind of the route's kind of gone back to normal, with these long mountain stages and high mountains as well. So I really like 2,700. I really like these short stages. I think it's quite it's good for everybody. It's good for the riders. It's good for the fans, and I think it's also where it does become more attractive, makes the sport more attractive. Is that like last year the 70-kilometre stage?
Yeah,
you can keep an audience captive for 2 hours 20.
Yeah,
they can see the whole stage, and it gives a little bit more perspective of one, what we're doing, and two, the tactics of the race and how the race is evolving. Whereas if you have a 6-hour stage, people get bored, and it's like, and then you lose them and you lose interest. But I think if it's these shorter stages, it's gonna, obviously it's a little bit more nervous for us. It's more aggressive racing, but it's also less. You accumulate less fatigue as well because it's so intense. But then you're not spending 6 hours just plodding around the mountains, just grinding away. Yeah. But obviously there's still a place. There's a massive place in the sport for long stages. I think you see a different.
It's the heritage as well.
You also see a different winner always. If you do if it's a sprint after 6 hours or after 2 hours, completely different winner. Yeah. And I think you saw last year's tour definitely showed that because the 65k stage was I think it was a great race. But then also the last stage into La Runs was also a great race. And it's two completely opposite stages. One's 65, one's 230 kilometres, but it showed how diverse the sport can be and how different courses, different distances. That's what makes cycling so special. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You've got hopefully you've got a couple of good seasons ahead at least. Some good results coming. New family, which is a different dynamic again. So personal life, and I think as riders sort of come to they've had the big heritage over a decade at the highest level, and you sort of reflect back and you can see where you've come from and where you're going now. But as your daughters grow up, how would you like them to sort of remember you? What sort of rider, and when you? I don't know. I don't really care. You don't? No. Just going out there and doing it. I do this because I enjoy it. Yeah. And obviously it does get harder to be away from home now, for sure. But yeah, it's like you're saying about the most competitive at the tour last year. I completely forgot about it. I actually forgotten about it. It's until you say it again, I'm just like, oh yeah, I wasn't I? It's I don't do this because for results or for recognition, or it's purely just because I enjoy doing it. And the moment that I stop enjoying riding up mountains, I stop enjoying racing, I'll just stop. And who knows when that's going to be? It could be this year, it could be in 5 years, but it's not. I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like, crikey, it's such a hard sport, you've got to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then it's going to I think the key as well is I really want to stop racing before I stop liking riding my bike. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of, you don't want to stop on a sour note, and I want to be able to go in the mountains and just enjoy riding my bike still. Well, you've done the recon on the Soulor, you got the Tourmalet in a bit of a blizzard yesterday, so you've survived that one. Yeah. Hopefully there won't be too many dramas on that stage come July this year. Wish you the best of luck for everything. It's been an absolute pleasure passing by for the last couple of days, and if you're in town again, drop on by. We'll be cheering for you. Passing in a few months, aren't I? Well, yeah, I don't think you'll give a little smile and a wink for us, but I won't hold you to stopping and signing anything for us on that occasion. Pleasure catching up with you again, and best of luck. Cheers, mate. Thanks. Take it easy.